History loves a clean story. One inventor, one breakthrough, one name we're told to remember. But real innovation is rarely clean. Ideas overlap, discoveries collide, and credit doesn't always go to the person who did the work. It goes to the person who controlled the moment. In this video, we're uncovering the geniuses whose inventions were taken, absorbed, or quietly written out of history. Not because they failed, but because they were outmaneuvered. Some lost their ideas in courtrooms. Some lost them to corporations. And one inventor, number 6 on this list, lost something so world-changing that its theft altered the course of modern life. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented patterns. And once you see them, you won't look at progress the same way again. 1. Lizzie Magie, the woman behind Monopoly. Monopoly is probably your favorite board game. It's been played by over 1 billion people, sold in more than 100 countries, and has generated billions of dollars since the 1930s. Some estimates place its lifetime revenue at over $7 billion. Now here's the part you were never told. What if I told you the person who invented Monopoly was never fully credited and was paid just $500 for it? In 1904, a writer, inventor, and outspoken feminist named Lizzie Magie created the Landlord's Game. Its purpose was not fun, it was a warning. Magie was a supporter of Georgism, an economic philosophy that argued land ownership concentrates wealth unfairly. Her game was designed to prove that point. Players watched one landlord grow richer while everyone else spiraled toward bankruptcy. The frustration you feel playing Monopoly today? That was the lesson. The game spread organically, copied by hand and shared for decades. In the 1930s, Charles Darrow encountered one of these versions, simplified it, renamed it Monopoly, and sold it to Parker Brothers. Darrow became a millionaire. Magie received a one-time payment of $500. No royalties, no legacy. Her critique of greed was stripped out and sold back to the world as entertainment. This wasn't inspiration. This wasn't coincidence. It was a warning, turned into a product. And history remembered the salesman, not the genius. 2. Antonio Meucci, the man who invented the telephone. You've been taught that the telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell. But what if Bell wasn't first? Not even close. Decades earlier, an Italian immigrant named Antonio Meucci had already built a working voice communication device. In the 1850s, Meucci developed what he called the teletrofono, so he could speak to his bedridden wife from another room. It transmitted sound electrically through wires. It worked. In 1871, Meucci filed a temporary patent caveat. He planned to complete it when he could afford the fee. He never got the chance. His working models were later stored in a laboratory tied to Bell's circle. They disappeared. The paperwork vanished. When Meucci tried to renew his filing, he was told it no longer existed. In 1876, Bell filed his patent. Bell became the face of communication. Meucci died poor and unheard. In 2002, the United States House of Representatives officially recognized Meucci's contribution as foundational to the telephone. Here's the unsettling part: lost prototypes, missing documents, a perfectly timed patent. None of these prove intent on their own, but together, they raise a question history never answered. If this were coincidence, it was a very convenient one. And as you'll soon see, Meucci wasn't the last genius to be erased right before the future arrived. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe to Missing Clue. We don't chase myths. We examine the gaps history leaves behind and the people erased inside them. 3. Gordon Gould, the man who invented the laser. In 1957, a young physicist named Gordon Gould wrote the word laser into his notebook and outlined a practical way to build one. At the time, it was nothing more than theory. No working laser existed yet. Gould shared his ideas freely with colleagues at research labs and universities, including scientists connected to major defense and electronics contractors. He believed the science would speak for itself. It didn't. While Gould struggled to secure patents, corporations moved fast. Companies like Hughes Aircraft, Bell Labs, and military contractors began developing lasers for communications, range finding, medical surgery, and weapons systems. Billions of dollars flowed into laser-based technologies while Gould was locked in legal limbo. For decades, Gould fought patent battles against corporations with unlimited legal budgets. During that time, lasers became essential to barcode scanners, fiber optic networks, eye surgery, and missile guidance systems. The technology reshaped modern life without its inventor. Finally, in 1987, U.S. courts ruled that Gould had been first. He was awarded 48 laser-related patents. Licensing fees followed, but the real damage was already done. The industries were built, the fortunes were made, the history books were written. This wasn't a race he lost. It was a finish line that was moved, until everyone else had already crossed it. 4. Elias Howe, the man who won the case and still lost history. In 1846, Elias Howe solved a problem that had defeated engineers for decades. He invented a sewing machine that actually worked at scale, thanks to one critical breakthrough: the lock stitch. 2 threads interlocking through fabric. Simple, reliable, revolutionary. Howe patented it. Then he failed. Manufacturers laughed him out of factories. Investors walked away. Bankrupt and desperate, Howe left the United States to try his luck in England. When he returned, he found something worse than failure. His invention was everywhere. American factories were filled with sewing machines using the lock stitch mechanism. Machines built and sold by Isaac Singer. Singer didn't invent the sewing machine. He improved its usability, added marketing flair, and mass-produced it aggressively. But the core mechanism, the heart of the machine, belonged to Howe. So Howe did the unthinkable. He sued an entire industry. After years of brutal legal battles, the courts ruled decisively in Howe's favor. Singer and every major manufacturer were forced to pay royalties. For a brief moment, Howe became wealthy. But here's the twist history forgets. When people talk about sewing machines today, they don't say Howe. They say Singer. Because winning in court doesn't mean winning the story. Howe proved the theft. Singer owned the narrative. And in the end, history sided with the man who sold the invention, not the one who made it possible. 5. Hans Lippershey, the telescope that opened the universe. When you think of the telescope, one name dominates history: Galileo Galilei. But Galileo didn't invent it. In 1608, a Dutch spectacle maker named Hans Lippershey presented a new optical device to the Dutch government. It used carefully aligned lenses to magnify distant objects. The military immediately understood its value. Lippershey applied for a patent. The problem? The design was rejected as too easy to copy. Within months, word of the invention spread across Europe. Galileo heard about it secondhand, built his own version without ever meeting Lippershey, and then did something brilliant. He turned it toward the sky. Galileo didn't just use the telescope, he branded it. He published discoveries. He named moons. He framed the device as a revolutionary scientific instrument, not a novelty. History followed the story he told. Lippershey received no lasting credit, no legacy, no association with astronomy. This wasn't theft in a patent office. It was theft in memory. Because the man who invents a tool doesn't always own the future it reveals. And once again, the loudest voice became the inventor, while the first one vanished into the footnotes. 6. Nikola Tesla. The invention they took, then quietly gave back. If theft had a final boss, it would look like this. At the turn of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla held multiple patents describing wireless radio transmission. He demonstrated them publicly. He filed them legally, and he beat his competitors to the patent office. Then Guglielmo Marconi sent the first transatlantic radio signal. Marconi was celebrated. Tesla was ignored. Marconi's system relied on at least 17 patents already granted to Tesla, but investors backed Marconi. Tesla lacked financial support. In 1904, the U.S. Patent Office reversed itself and awarded key radio patents to Marconi instead. Tesla protested. He was dismissed. For decades, Marconi was credited as the inventor of radio. He even won a Nobel Prize. Then, in 1943, months after Tesla died penniless, the United States Supreme Court quietly restored Tesla's priority, ruling that his patents predated Marconi's work. No press tour, no apology, no correction in textbooks. Radio had already reshaped the world. Tesla got the credit back, after he could no longer use it. And at this point, the pattern isn't subtle anymore. The greatest inventions don't always go to the greatest minds. They go to the ones best positioned to claim them. 7. Elisha Gray. The telephone was won in the patent office, not the lab. History remembers the telephone as a triumph of genius. What it rarely admits is that it was also a triumph of influence. In the 1870s, Elisha Gray was one of the most respected inventors in the United States. He had already co-founded what would become Western Electric. More importantly, he had built a working telephone prototype that used liquid transmitters, technically elegant, highly sensitive, and in some ways superior to competing designs. On February 14, 1876, Gray submitted a patent caveat describing his telephone. So did Alexander Graham Bell. Bell's paperwork reached the patent office first, by hours. What followed was not a scientific debate, but a legal and financial one. Bell had powerful backers, aggressive lawyers, and investors who understood how to move fast inside institutions. Gray had the better engineering, but hesitated, revised, and trusted the process. Bell secured the patent. Gray's design was dismissed. Years of lawsuits followed. Evidence surfaced suggesting Bell's final design bore striking similarities to Gray's liquid transmitter. Courts ruled in Bell's favor anyway. The telephone didn't go to the man who built it best. It went to the man who played the system better. This wasn't theft by force. It was theft by leverage. And it set a precedent that innovation would follow for the next century. 8. Robert Kearns, the invention. Every car used until the inventor fought back. Some inventions are stolen quietly. Others are stolen so openly that the inventor has to prove he exists. In the 1960s, Robert Kearns invented the intermittent windshield wiper. Inspired by the human eye, his system allowed wipers to pause between swipes instead of scraping constantly across the glass. It was safer, smarter, obvious in hindsight. Kearns patented the design and pitched it to major automakers. They rejected him. Then they used it anyway. Ford, Chrysler, and others rolled out cars equipped with intermittent wipers. Without licensing the patent, the technology spread across the entire auto industry. Millions of vehicles, billions in revenue. Kearns sued. What followed was a legal war that consumed decades of his life. Corporations buried him in paperwork and legal fees, betting he would give up. He didn't. In the end, Kearns won. Courts ruled that the companies had knowingly infringed his patents. He was awarded damages, but long after the industry had already profited. This case proved something chilling. You can own the patent, you can be right, and still have your invention taken, unless you're willing to fight the people who can afford not to lose. 9. Thomas Hayes. The invention that powered the Industrial Revolution under someone else's name. By now, you might think stolen inventions are a modern problem. They're not. In the 1760s, before factories dominated cities and machines replaced human labor, a quiet English inventor named Thomas Hayes was building revolutionary textile machines. His designs mechanized spinning and carding, processes that once took hours of human labor and reduced them to minutes. Hayes lacked money, so he relied on trust. He shared his designs with a clockmaker named John Kay, asking him to build prototypes. Those designs didn't stay put. They eventually reached Richard Arkwright, a man with capital, ambition, and legal backing. Arkwright patented the spinning frame. He built factories. He became one of the richest men in Britain. History crowned him a father of the Industrial Revolution. Hayes watched from the sidelines. Years later, court testimony revealed that key parts of Arkwright's machines were based on Hayes's original designs. Arkwright's patents were challenged and partially invalidated, but by then the factories were already running. The revolution had already begun. Hayes received no fortune, no recognition, no legacy. This wasn't a single stolen idea. It was the theft that mechanized labor, reshaped economies, and changed how humans worked forever, while the man who started it was erased from the story. 10. Rosalind Franklin. The discovery that decoded life without its discoverer. If there is a theft that defines modern science, it's this one. In the early 1950s, Rosalind Franklin was studying DNA using X-ray crystallography. Her work produced Photo 51, the clearest image ever captured of DNA's structure. It revealed the double helix shape with unmistakable precision. Franklin never gave that image away. It was shown to James Watson without her knowledge. Along with Francis Crick, Watson used Franklin's data to build the model that explained how DNA works. They published first. They became legends. Franklin's contribution was minimized, cited vaguely, and stripped of its central role. She died of cancer in 1958 at just 37 years old. In 1962, Watson and Crick received the Nobel Prize. Franklin could not. Nobel Prizes are not awarded posthumously. The structure of DNA transformed medicine, genetics, forensics, and biotechnology. Entire industries were born from that discovery, and the person who made it possible was written out, not by accident, but by access, hierarchy, and silence. At this point, the pattern is undeniable. The closer an invention gets to reshaping the world, the more violently credit seems to drift away from its creator. If there's one thing these stories make impossible to ignore, it's this. Brilliance alone has never been enough. Progress follows power. It follows money. It follows whoever survives the moment when ideas become valuable. Some inventions were taken outright. Others disappeared behind legal language, institutional authority, or deliberate silence. And whether that happened by accident or intention, history rarely clarifies. But the gap between what happened and what we were taught, that's the clue. This is Missing Clue. If you're here, it means you question the version of history that feels too simple. Subscribe, stay curious, and stay alert. Because the greatest thefts don't always look like crimes. Sometimes they look like success.